What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex. And we are coming to you live today in two places. We're over at Crowdcast. We're also over at YouTube. Maybe you're listening to the podcast later on, however you're listening to it or watching. We appreciate you so much. Now, you might notice, of course, our third is missing here. Pete is not here.
It's weird. Every year he misses this show. And I don't know. I guess he just takes a vacation at this.
No. This is every year, April 20th. He takes off to celebrate, of course, Adolf Hitler's birthday.
Yes. He's going to really enjoy hearing this back.
He will listen to it. Hey, a little bit of business. I guess I'm getting low volume here.
Oh, Alex, check your levels.
What about now?
Okay, too aggressive.
Yeah, what about now? Woo!
I think you're just screaming. That's I think so. The way forward.
I want to thank everybody with our check over the comments here on Crowdcast. We appreciate it.
The fans come to test your levels.
Now, I do want to mention, in all honesty, Pete actually is off for 420 today.
Yeah,
which he told us about months in advance.
He did, and he's very responsible in that way. He wouldn't give us a lot of details about what he's doing, because I was like, Pete, I think you being high on the show would actually bring a welcome calmness, perhaps, an energy we could really latch onto.
Yeah, but nope. No. Also, he was very vague at it. He was just like, hey, I can't be here for the show, and we asked him why a couple of times until we figured out what was going on.
A comment from Stray Bullet, how's Pete's levels right now? Very high. His levels are dangerously high.
Dangerously high. All right, I'll tell you what. Speaking of which, we're going to invite our first guest here into the stream tonight. He is the creator of the comic book Youth, among many, many other things. A new issue, season 2, debuted on Comixology. Ladies and gentlemen, Curt Pires. Hello, how are you, Curt?
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for coming out. Excited to chat about this book and everything going on with you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Youth Season 2, just out now from Comixology. It's a Comixology original. Season 1 has been collected recently by Dark Horse as well, and that's out. Did I get all the details correct?
Exactly, yeah, they both. So since they're smart and savvy people over at Amazon, they put out the first issue of the new one the same day they did the trade paperback through Dark Horse. So there's lots of ways for us to separate people from their money. I think is the goal of these big companies. So please give us all your money.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, I think if you read the first season, you know what's going on. I came in pretty clean with this issue here, with the second one. So I didn't know what to expect. What I got was a pretty intense drama until there's a twist turn at the end. How much do you want to set up about what the idea of Youth is?
Well, I think that's sort of the idea that in marketing it, we kind of say it redefines the teen superhero story, which I think is fair, except maybe a little self-aggrandizing. But it's just a different way of doing things. I think we wanted to tell a story that felt a little more authentic to the way teenagers are in current times. And it hasn't really been done. I don't feel like, I don't think picking up Young Justice or Teen Titans, you get the feeling that these are particularly accurate representations of what it's like to be a teenager, which is fine. I mean, those books are great, but I just wanted to do something that was a little more realistic and
less quippy. You're saying the kids today are less running around with little jokes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just a sort of a different approach, right? Like it's, I think a lot of what we do is the book to me almost is like half crime comic, half teen superhero comic, right? Like this issue we're talking about here would basically follow this character around who's had a particularly rough life. And we see all these sort of situations he gets into before he gets empowered So I think it was just a different spin on things that, like everything I do was inspired by what I wanted to read and see, So people seem to be digging it.
Now, can you talk a little bit about working with Alex Diato? Because I know you guys worked on Olympia as well, which we really liked a lot on the show.
Yeah.
What has that collaboration been like as you've gone through these different projects?
It's been great. I think we like anything. The longer you work with someone, the more of a shorthand you develop, and I think we've both gotten better since we have been working together. So I think Alex and I have really been able to push things in like a book like this is totally different from Olympia because Olympia is very grandiose and sort of very widescreen comic. There's lots of double page spreads, that sort of stuff in it, which obviously doesn't really work in digital. So this we've taken sort of a different approach to, and there's pages like the one you see on the left. There's higher panel counts, all this sort of stuff that we can try out for the digital first format that still work when we bring it to print, but it's just we're approaching it a bit differently. But yeah, Alex is great, and so is our colorist Deacon If.
Can you talk about inspirations a little bit, particularly for this story in Youth Season 2? I mean, again, for those who are listening to the podcast, you're not getting this, but this scene outside the school really reminded me of Brick in a certain way. So I don't know if that's what you're pulling on or anything.
Well, that actually happened to me, that scene, not the guns. But I went shut up a couple minutes too late to science class once. She wouldn't let me in. And was like really shitty about it. So then I just ended up going and drinking with one of my friends at the time. I was like 15 years old, and that's the first time I really tried alcohol. So should have let me in the science class.
Yeah, you'd be a scientist now, and not, or you went into comics. One science class away.
Now,
exactly. So I guess I should thank her.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I was reading an interview where you were talking about the first volume of this as well. And like you're saying, a lot of it seems to be pulled on people you knew or situations or things that happened to you. Where's the line there in terms of adapting things from real life into a superhero comic for you?
Well, if it happened to me, I think it's sort of fair game. I won't like write stuff that happened to other people or people I know without unless I was going to ask them, because then I just think it's kind of a shitty and predatory thing to do. But yeah, a lot of it's inspired by personal experience, crazy stuff happened to me. Like I said, that story's sort of the tip of the iceberg. And yeah, the most comfortable I'll feel sharing any of this stuff. But
yeah, I was going to say, this could go get deep. Let's get weird.
I think it's like, look, when you're a teenager, you get into a lot of shit, and I'm able to just pull from it to use for the book. Because my job, rest of people, I guess you just do a bunch of stupid shit when you're a teenager and you don't get to do anything with it. You just have to grin and bear it. So it's an outlet.
Now, with that in mind, did you take what about your life did you draw on to write the superhero side of it? Is it just the teen side of it, or are you pulling some of that up into the superhero world as well?
For sure. I'm a superhero in real life.
That's what I was getting at.
That's my day job.
Yeah. Fighting crime to pay for my comic career.
Exactly. Well, there's no money in comics, right? So I have to make some money somehow. No, that part's obviously inspired by like comics. I love and that sort of stuff, and all sorts of different stuff. Like I know that part of the first volume was really inspired by like Jack Kirby, and then yeah, like I like teen superhero comics too. Like I think Runaways was probably the last really good one, and that book's just fucking so good. And so yeah, I love comics too. My critique or inspiration for this book, withstanding, it's not like I don't think there's never been a good teen superhero book. I just had my own spin on it, right? And I think it had something to add to the conversation.
Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, so do you feel like your characters or this type of more like realistic interpretation of teen superheroes could exist in like a DC? Like you were talking about Teen Titans earlier. Like, what if your characters from this first issue were on the Teen Titans? How would they hang?
Well, they would never let us do the stuff that we do in this book at one of those big publishers, but I don't think they would hang at all. I think these kids get into a fight or something. I don't know. My characters are real rough around the edges, and Robin and the Teen Titans are just sort of hanging out and I don't know, fighting weird villains, like the Flash villains, the Boomerang guy or whatever, the mirror.
And boomerangs are edgy.
Yeah. Literally.
Very sharp. They come right back at you. Yeah. It's a metaphor.
On the other end of the spectrum, on kind of the more businessy side, this is through Comixology, which is a subset of Amazon, and you have Youth is in development, I believe, at Prime Video, right? Is there a direct line there, or is it just kind of happy coincidence, happenstance, that you got the Prime Video development and Comixology at the same time?
Well, it was at Comixology first, and then I pitched it to Prime. I was sort of able to get a meeting with them, and I thought if I'm going to sell this as a TV show, I might as well just sell it to Amazon. And so I pitched them the show, and like 24 hours later, I had an offer. They let me write the pilot. It was just very weird.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget the day I was walking out of the Airbnb. I was staying in LA. I was going out to get into an Uber for a meeting. I got an email. It's like, yeah, I want to do this. Our lawyer's gonna get into deal points with you. And I was just like, holy shit, you know.
Let me enjoy this for a second. Deal points before we're doing that.
Yeah, it was just weird. I'll never forget it as long as I live. So really cool. I mean, it's cool. There's a direct through line in that, like, I'm working on both of them, right? So I'm pretty involved in it, and I wouldn't have really let someone do it if I thought they were going to butcher it or just have some TV film bro do a hack job on it. So
I think where in the process are you?
Yeah.
So we've got a pilot. We're continuing to sort of work on the script and doing another draft on it as we sort of like calibrate and get everything right. But got a great team on it.
I mean, speaking of which, I don't know how much you're aware of this part of things, but we had Scott Snyder on here a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about a very similar thing where he's writing the pilot for the Witches TV series that he's going to be doing over there. I know Robert Kirkman got to have a pretty hands-on approach with Invincible. It seems like the Amazon team is very comic book friendly. Has that been your impression?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty savvy over there. I think we're all working with the genre team over there, and there's great execs. It's always interesting when you're working and doing this stuff in Hollywood, right? Because I think historically we've seen that there can be situations where they just option your thing and just like put whoever on it. And I think creators have more leverage now, which is part of the thing, right? Talking about guys like Scott and Robert, obviously they're pretty big. Mm-hmm. Myself, I went those guys got big in comics and then went and did this other stuff. Myself have been able to do all these different things and these creator-owned books that I've been able to leverage in that space, which is sort of giving me more power there, and also in the comic realm of not having to eat as much shit from publishers and stuff, right?
That's the goal, is eating as little shit as possible. That's what I always look at.
I know I'm putting it like really inelegantly, but
I mean, there's some truth to that. I sort of like that as an especially in like entertainment, like
it's such that you have to reach a certain level to not be, you know, ruthlessly brutalized and by these publishers and be treated with respect, but it's just the reality. If you don't have a certain level of clout or power, they're just going to walk all over you. So I had to go a different way, but I've been very lucky and blessed to now get into those rooms and be able to advocate for myself and build sort of a career on that. So I'm not complaining.
It seems the perfect fit. I mean, clearly they're leaning into comic book stuff. At the same time, they're leaning into kind of the YA thing, but edgier YA with the Wilds and the show called Panic that's coming up. So it makes a lot of sense that they're picking up youth as well. To get back to comic books, though, a little bit, you have a lot of irons in the fire at this point. Not only youth, but you released 2 more series. Is that right? Through Comixology at the same time?
Yeah, so like we just announced 2 more series, which we're going to be dropping this year. So we got one that's coming out in the summer called Lost Falls, which sort of like I describe it sort of like Twin Peaks meets Lovecraft Country. It's a mystery box thriller about a detective who wakes up on the shore of this small town with no idea how he got there, and as he sort of pieces together his memory and figures out what's going on, he stumbles onto conspiracies that are both sort of human and cosmic in nature. That one's a lot of fun, and I think people who like shows like Twin Peaks and Lost will really enjoy that. The book's totally done already. I sent the files off for the trade today, so when it's coming out, there'll be no delays. Monthly. And then in the fall, we're launching a book called Memoria, which is sort of it's a thriller again, but very different from Lost Falls. It's sort of inspired by things like True Detective and Seven, and it's about these 2 detectives working this sort of unsolvable case and how their lives sort of unravel while they're working it. They stumble onto big like Jeffrey Epstein style conspiracy. So really fun stuff.
Fun
We're
Well,
gonna turn it to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial for that branding synergy.
Definitely. That's hilarious. Time it up. Eat less shit. Time it to Ghislaine.
That is awesome. That is so much stuff. Anything else you want to tease or talk about before we let you go? Since again, I know you have a lot of projects you're working on.
Yeah, I don't really feel the need to plug anything else. If you found me funny or enjoyable or insightful on this podcast, feel free to buy the youth trade paperback or trade paperbacks of any of the other stuff. Not above this end of podcast shill. So thank you guys for having me.
Hey, it looks great.
Thank you so much for coming on. It is awesome. And again, you can get the first issue at Comixology. Curt, thanks so much. Have a great night. Good luck with the Amazon thing.
Hopefully good luck with everything. That's awesome.
Soon.
Thanks, guys. I hope you'll be watching it soon too. Later.
All right.
Later.
All right. Once again, that is Curt Pires. The book is called Youth. Season 2 is out from Comixology. You can get the first volume from Dark Horse in comic book stores or digitally from Comixology as well right now. And now we're going to try to welcome our next guest into the show. One of them is here. I'm not sure about the other one. We'll see what happens.
Roll the dice.
Roll the dice. But we're going to invite Emily Pearson here. She is the artist for The Vein, which is a great book out from Oni Press. Hello, Emily. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
All right. Do you have any idea where your friend Eliot is?
No, I messaged him. He was really excited about showing up for the podcast, so I'm not sure what happened, but I think he would definitely be here.
Yeah.
If it was
all right. No, we trust it. Hey, listen, we're happy to chat with you. If he does pop in at some point, we'll definitely invite him into the stream. But The Vein is great. We've been talking about almost every issue on our Stack podcast. Why don't you give the pitch rather than me giving the pitch to
That's
everybody?
right.
Yeah, the way Eliot described it to me when I was first talking to him about doing a project together was super sexy vampires that go through time. So it's basically it's a period piece of vampires through the ages of the 1940s to modern times.
Mm-hmm.
and they do a bunch of cool stuff. They fight in World War II, and they are involved in. Oh, I think that's Eliot. Oh wait, no, that's the screen share. Anyways,
Yeah, sorry.
You really got our hopes up, Alex.
Sorry. Nope, it's just a comic book cover.
That's fine. But yeah, there's a bunch of different time periods through it. It's very fun. It's very it's I don't want to say campy because I feel like that's a little insulting to Eliot, but it's just a very fun story.
Now, when he first said super sexy vampires, is this what you immediately pictured, or like how did you go from that first? What was your first impression, and how did you refine it? Because super sexy vampires could mean many, many things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I thought a lot about like, what I find super cool and like stuff like that, which I put into the book, like over the top fashion and like very glamorous characters. Yeah, and I think a lot of what made it fun was the characters' attitudes and like getting able to work off that. I think I see Eliot in chat.
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yep. He says, "Oh no, I'm late," in all caps.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
It's perfect timing.
Excellent. No, that's great. Well, while we still have you for the moment, let's talk about the look of it a little bit more, because like you said, you're jumping through all these different time periods. What is it like trying to keep these vampire characters consistent while, hey, there's Eliot. Hello, guys, how are you?
I'm so sorry. I thought this was 7:30 Eastern time. I'm so sorry.
No, you are early for 7:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, so you're responsible.
Oh, God. Thank God. All right.
Yeah, all good. Totally good. Thanks so much for coming in. That's it for the interview. Thanks, Eliot.
Hey, guys. Have a nice day.
No,
as someone who's late a lot, Alex, you don't need to punish any more than the way that he feels right now.
Fair enough. The only part that you missed really is that we love the book. We're big fans of it. We've talked about it a lot. But Emily, for you, like we're asking, you got these vampire characters throughout different time periods. How do you give them consistent while you're changing the different looks?
Yeah, I think when Eliot and I were like going through like the pitching process and also like just developing the character designs, I think one of the things I did was, I think you remember this, Eliot, I think it's in the trade where I drew all the different characters with different outfits from like, I think like the 90s, the 70s, the 50s, whatever it was. And then I was just trying to keep them recognizable throughout history, because they were changing their hairstyles and their clothes. In comics and art, a lot of the time, if a character has a different hairstyle, sometimes they can look like a completely different person.
Yeah.
So I think mostly just keeping them looking different from each other, but recognizable. Like, Lost has brown hair and dark skin, and then like Orphan has blonde hair and light skin and stuff like that. So just different ways that you can recognize them each from each other very easily.
Now, Eliot, from you to take a little bit of a step back, when you were coming up with this book, and I think one of the joys of it is it does jump forward, which is something that I really wasn't expecting from the first issue. Yeah. I thought, oh, neat, it's like Prohibition era vampires going on robberies. That's cool. But that's not really what it is at all. How did the idea develop as you fleshed out the concept?
Yeah, I absolutely. Once again, I am so sorry. And Emily, I owe you like something. And because I'm a huge fan of you guys, I was so excited. I'm such a fan of you guys. So
that's so nice.
Truly,
you have a lot of tiny pictures you had to straighten before you got here.
And they're not, and one actually fell off. Great, it's great. My life is a mess. It's fine.
Do not feel bad. I truly can't express how often I am late for everything.
I know, but I'm from the Midwest, and like I was raised to feel bad about being alive. So to answer your question, and thank you for having me on, and us on, and talking about the vein. A lot of my stories start as jokes in my head, and I don't mean that to be flippant. I really don't, because a joke is a full story, right? And it kind of helps me, in a way, kind of like wrap my head around an idea, and then take it further and further and further and further and further until I've invested so much time that Emily becomes my best friend now.
Can I interrupt you actually and ask, what does that actually look like when you say it was first a joke in your head? Could you tell us what that sort of is?
Absolutely. So I was eating popsicles one day, and I was eating popsicles with my wife, and I finished my popsicle, and the popsicle stick had a joke on it. And the joke was, what is a vampire's favorite kind of bank? And, the answer is a blood bank. And then I was like, I was so mad at it because I was like, this person's getting paid way more than I'll ever get paid.
You think the popsicle stick joke writer's making bank?
Don't,
100%.
Justin, calm down. We have him on next.
Oh, nice. That's a good guess.
He has a monocle, top hat. He's a jerk about it.
The most difficult part of that job actually is writing on it through the popsicles.
Absolutely. How do you keep it intact and how do you not melt it? But we're talking about top tier copywriting there, guys. But I was just thinking about it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then I started thinking about it more and more, and I was like, well, and then I started thinking about other vampire stories, and it's like, and I'm a huge fan of history and how like frenetic and chaotic history is. And I just kind of started investing in it. I'm like, well, what if there were blood bank robbing vampires throughout time? Like, what does that look like? And that's like how it led me to the overall concept of the vein. And then I started thinking about characters and developing them with Emily, and and how you have, and that's where like the idea is like you have the core 4 vampires, and they are in some respects unchanging, a constant. And so we needed, I think the thing that surprised people most is that the main narrator is a human being. And I wanted to do a sort of like Captain Ahab style situation with that person, where it's like, there's kind of an often thing where it's like, I don't want to like do thus spoke Zarathustra or anything like that, but it's like when you are revealed a truth that is maddening, you become mad, right? And that was the point of that character to me, was to like, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling anything, but and how he's tracking them, and we gauge time sort of through him, and then with Emily through the changing eras, and then kind of delving into the characters themselves. It's like I wanted to do something a little bit different. I am a Midwesterner, right? Like, and like,
No doubt.
And I say that seriously, where it's like this book is a little sexy, right? And like that was a little bit out of my comfort zone for me, right? But it's something I really wanted to try, and I wanted to do it in a way that was respectful and not exploitative.
I feel like so many vampire books or vampire stories, it's about like betrayal and surprises and all that. And this book felt so different when we first started reading it, because it really felt like they relied on each other and had such a strong relationship. And I think you show that so well in the writing, and Emily in the art. I feel like they're always like reflecting on each other a little bit in the way the characters just relate to each other on the page. Was that a conscious, were you like, this book's different because it's about them, they're a team in a way, or they're like...
It's like, I mean, when I first thank you, first of all, that's a nice compliment.
I'm from the Northeast, so a compliment's very rare coming out.
Oh, man. Now we're like 2 magnets. How do they work, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm from the country, so there's a weird mix of like Canadian border. I'm like Midwest, but also mean.
Interesting. And I like you. You know? That's important. I don't know. At first, when I entered into the book, I was like, I want to do a book that's wild and free. Right, and because we're talking about vampires, and like, and I kind of had all of those characters inhabit those personality traits. Like, I was kind of a little bit writing about not necessarily Gen Z, but like Gen Z in like in a positive tone, where it's just like, like all Gen Z has ever seen are millennials and boomers hate each other, right? That's all they have ever seen, and it's like, and it's like the whole idea was to just disregard that, and it's like they're just focusing on living, right? The undead live the most, right? But as I was writing the book, it's like something I discovered, and something that I should have remembered. I had like, not to get weird, right? But like I had like a mental breakdown in college, and like I was like, I'm gonna be a cool nihilistic asshole now, right? And like, and guess what? I was like, not a happy person. It's crazy, almost how that works. And so, as I was discovering the characters myself, like, why then nihilistic freedom doesn't work, right? Nihilistic freedom is like bad. And so it's like, but then you have these immortal characters who break all bonds of society. Why would they continue to persist simply just to live? Like, yes, I believe that all living entities, they want to continue living. It's like an instinct, but it's like, but what's the point of it all if you have a thinking brain? And the point of it all is that they love each other. They're better with each other, as much as they might end up hating to admit it. And that's what the story is about. It's love is eternal, right? And I mean that in the most like, not cheesy way possible, but in the most like idyllic way possible. And they're super hot vampires,
Well, to that end, I mean, not to take too much of a step back, but as Eliot was saying, Emily, it's trying to strike this balance between being like a little sexy, but not too sexy at the same time. How do you do that from the artistic perspective?
Just draw really hot girls.
Yeah. Longer pants.
Yeah.
Cups like just up to here.
Mm-hmm. Hubba. Sorry.
Yeah, I think alongside like the fashion, which, it's fun to like, I kind of got the impression when Eliot like started working on me with these characters, like if they're in the 50s, they're still gonna dress like sexy. They don't really care what people think of them. Like they're gonna look good because they want to look good. So it's alongside that. It's like fashion, and then like a lot of Eliot's script, like the characters have a lot of attitude, which I think can be really attractive if you do it right. So I think there is a lot of that. It's just like, like what makes you attracted to a person, or what makes a person like hot, I guess, just yeah.
Now, when you were doing the research into the different fashion periods, what were some of the things that you were like, this is stupid, I can't believe people wore this thing, or you were like, I can't put this on a person and still consider them a sexy vampire?
Oh man, that's interesting. I think sometimes I tried to take it as far as I could. There are definitely some points where it's just like, I think around like some of the fashion in like the 80s or 70s, where it's like this person has like giant bell bottoms, and just like I don't know how to put it right. Just there's just some fashion that just like, I kind of see the stuff that's carried over from the 70s and the 60s and the 80s and stuff like that, and that people still wear now. Like that's probably what would have been more attractive back then too,
Yeah. Eliot, from your direction, when it came to the writing, again, one of the things that I think was very surprising to me about the book is it's almost a little bit of a different genre every single issue out of the gate. When did that decision come about?
It came pretty quickly. almost immediately in my head. You know, I mean, I didn't know exactly how to implement it or how it would come across. You know, and some people liked it, and some people, I don't care, yo. But like, I so care. No, it's just like you're dealing with immortality and something like, I think I didn't want to do the traditional woe is me immortal warrior story. You know, I mean, we've seen it so many times. I do love Highlander. I do love Archer and Armstrong. But I didn't want to do that route with them. It didn't feel right. But at the same time, like looking at history and looking at the historical times we've all experienced, you know, collectively, it's like they just happen, you know, and then, you know, some people move on and some people don't move on, and like just kind of dealing with that. And then I was thinking about, well, like what kind of places in time would for chaotic vampires be attracted to? And like in my personal experience, in the things that I've seen and felt, chaos attracts chaos, right? Like whenever there's war or whenever there's violent conflict, that's such a big human emotional scar that like attracts, you know, some great people who want to help, and it also attracts some bad people who want to take advantage of that situation. And just kind of putting that in there and kind of thinking about it and working about it, it's like, what's more chaotic than war? Even World War II, like, you know, which is like the quote unquote good war, right? Like absolutely insane. Like it's been so sanitized over history, but it's like, you know, it's not fun, right? Nothing is, there's nothing cute about it, you know? And thinking about, you know, 1960s Cuba, where it's like you have revolutionaries and you have, you know, the Americans trying to overthrow them, and then thinking about, you know, trying to think about 1970s California. I mean, how many serial killers were active in Los Angeles in 1970s California? Like
the only way I know there were lots is because of the amount of documentaries that are coming out on an almost weekly basis.
And it's like, what was in the water? Or, you know,
yeah.
Like, so it's just like, I purposely picked areas that would work within my time frame that I thought would offer the most visually to Emily to play with. Like 1970s Hollywood is both disgusting and iconic at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think one of my favorite movies of all time is Charlie Heston in oh my gosh, and I'm even blanking on it. The Omega Man, you know. And it was just one of those weird movies where I watched it over and over and over again on TV growing up, and I'm like, who is this man in this speed suit? Like, you know, like what is this weird suit he's wearing? And like it's absolutely crazy. And then like, you know, and then it takes us to the present day, which is quite obviously chaos, you know.
It is funny. I feel like 70s Hollywood was where they were like, you have a movie idea because we're making it tomorrow, so hurry up and get it. Sew up the suits, get them out there. And that's like comics in the 90s. It was like, okay, we're doing your comic tomorrow. What's your idea? It's a Darkhawk? Cool. Go do it.
I think it's a really accurate description. I mean, how the movie Logan's Run got made, I'll never know. Like, I'll just never know. I love that movie, but it's just like, what? Who, like, I think there's just too much cocaine was the problem.
Logan's Run totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. There's a thing called carousel, and if they go to carousel, it's very bad for them, so they avoid carousel, and they go outside, and they find it's bad, and then they come back inside.
Listen, I feel you.
Totally straight.
Spoiler, Alex.
Totally
sorry, everybody.
But my only problem with that is, like, there's a moment in time where Michael York goes, okay, we have to tell everyone very calmly that this is all a lie. And then like smash cut, and he's like, it's all a lie.
My wife and I, honestly, all the time, almost out of nowhere, go, Carousel! Carousel, you don't have to do this! You don't have to die!
It's so...
Spoilers.
It's great. I love it.
In the 70s, they were at the craft services table. There was like granola, cocaine,
right,
apples. And so it's like...
Granola cocaine.
Yeah, which is really good, especially if you're trying to like clean up your digestive system.
Yeah, put a little bit of it on yogurt.
It goes in, and you get like some fiber. It's nice, you know.
If talking about time periods, if you were going to continue the vein, would you continue pushing forward potentially to like future vampires, or would you take it back and look at further decades there?
I think the only way forward is the Brave New World, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you know, the pitch I would want to do is like, listen, just because the dead never die, right? And like, you know, start them off in hell, and they're just like playing electric guitars, and they're having a lot of fun. And
Emily, are you writing this down? I feel like this is coming your way pretty soon.
We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Half the time I talk with Emily, I like come at her with a lot of emotion. And it feels like she's like, It's like when I talk to my wife, and she's like, that's nice. That's good. But no, it's just like, they start off in hell, they break out, and then, or they break out and or get resurrected by like a cool like witch girl, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, and then we just don't even start now. We start in like 2065, 100, or some really fun year, like, you know, like Marvel does or Valiant used to do or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then do the same kind of thing, but then deal with ultimate death, right? Where so there's some sort of, I wouldn't want to put it into a negative science fiction context because I don't want to put that mojo out there. You know what I mean? Yeah. But maybe like the sun is burning out, you know, or like there's some sort of natural phenomena occurring, or like humanity has colonized space and like now they're bopping from planet to planet, you know. I think there's something fun to be had there, and I would want to redeem them as heroes, because ultimately they do end the book as villains, in my opinion. I mean, like, I think they're villains that you like and they're villains that you love, but their arc is the classic 1950s, and I don't mean 1950s as in like, I'm not trying to idolize the 1950s, but the sort of code of conduct where it's like all your villains have to either get shot or be arrested at the end, you know, right. Like the original Scarface or something like that. So I would want to redeem them in some ways. And I think setting it in the future in a world where no one can die, where humanity has made itself immortal, would be pretty interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
That sounds awesome. This is a abrupt conversational turn, but I do want to ask about this. Emily, what is up with your awesome dog fan art?
My dog fan art?
Yeah, you have like this one, the adventure dog.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Where does this come from? What's the inspiration behind this?
Oh man. Okay, so I have a lot of art friends that I talk to mostly on Discord and online. And my friend has a character that she draws a lot. Hi Joyce. Her character's this like little girl that travels through different environments. And so we were just talking one time with our friends, and they're like, "What if she had like a Sherpa guide dog?" And so I drew that for her character. I don't know if I ever told her that before, but
well, I love it.
Wow.
I was looking through your site before the show, and I thought it was a very adorable dog, so I had to ask you about it.
I love all these jackets.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Before we do let both of you go, though, just The Vein is out now, the first volume, right? You can pick that up. Are there more plans to do more of The Vein, or is that done for the time being?
I mean, I am annoying. So yeah, as long as Emily isn't sick of working with me, I'm going to keep knocking on that door. But I can't. I'm not in charge of that decision, So who knows?
All right. Well, it's a very cool book. We do hope that there is more. Thank you both so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And good luck with everything.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you guys soon.
All right, there we go. Once again, Eliot Rahal and Emily Pearson. The book is called The Vein. Volume 1 is out now from Oni Press. Definitely pick it up. It's a lot of fun, particularly as we were talking about, if you want a fun, different riff on a vampire tale. And folks, it's time for our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions.
Woo!
Audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question either in the comments over on YouTube or in Ask a Question over here on Crowdcast, and we will get to it. But before we do, hey, Justin, there was something I wanted to run by you.
Oh, yes, great,
yeah.
Good. Oh, this feels like something good and just a regular conversation.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but this week's podcast is actually brought to you by Earth Echo Foods and their superfood product, Cacao Bliss. Did you know
Cacao!
Cacao!
Nothing feels better than being able to enjoy rich, smooth, creamy chocolate and knowing you're doing something good for your body. Alex, this is good for you, not like whatever weird sugar beer you're drinking off to the side.
It's Candy Brow. It's Candy
Brow.
Justin, it's funny you bring this up because they start with 100% organic cacao beans that are naturally kissed by the sun, that it's blended with turmeric, MCT oil, coconut, Himalayan sea salt, cinnamon, and black pepper, which coincidentally are the same ingredients in my Candy Brow.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's your body rub that you use as well.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to take my shirt off any second and just rub myself in some cacao bliss.
I don't think that's a good endorsement of this fine product. The results? Fall in love with a truly decadent, healthy, guilt-free chocolate, removing your cravings, facilitating weight loss, boosting your energy, and reducing your inflammation with one simple drink. Inflammation. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, that is one of my least favorite inflammations. And not only that, it is friendly to paleo, gluten-free, keto, vegan, and vegetarian diets.
It pairs perfectly with Zack Snyder's Mother Box meal as well, I believe.
Oh, that's very nice.
Just washes it right out of your system. For the last 8 years, Earth Echo Foods has been a leader in the superfoods market and are proud to have served millions of customers worldwide.
And we are offering up to 15% off when you use the code MINUTE15. You can check it out at earthechofoods.com/Minute Media. There you go. Good stuff. Now,
check it out.
From there to what we're drinking.
Shout out to Pablo in the comments saying, sounds like a commercial. Huh. All right, detective. We got a real Batman over here.
Wow. Sherlock Holmes. That's pretty cool. I am drinking, I know I drank this, I think 2 shows ago or something, this Neon Rainbows IPA.
Oh, yes.
Found it in the store again. It was gone for a little while. Real good. Very good IPA. Definitely highly recommended.
I've got 2 things. Are we doing what you drinking?
Yeah,
obviously, I'm drinking my
yeah,
cacao.
By the way, just to specify, this part is not a commercial.
Yeah. This is just, it is technically, but it's personal commercial.
Yeah.
I finished this Ruby Red Kolsch made by Genesee. It's actually very good. Very light, summery. It was 72 today here in Brooklyn, and what a dream to have that. And then I just moved on to this sour IPA from New Belgium, which is very good.
That looks like, just based on the label, but the sort of sour IPA that a boy in a fantasy story from like the 1800s would drink.
Exactly. I went to the market on my penny farthing and picked up this. I picked up a stick and a hoop for later on tonight. I'm going to run around the neighborhood and make the hoop go and drink. I'll be drunk.
My favorite game. Let's go to some questions. This is from M. Bell over on YouTube. In the past few years, comic books and animators have become mainstream. Dave Filoni comes to mind. If you could take control of a big franchise like him, which and why? I wonder if they were asking our guests there.
Could be.
Maybe.
Could be, but they're gone. It's our time.
It's our
now.
time. It's me time. Having a little me time. I'm just soaking here in the tub.
Yeah, definitely. Don't drift into another commercial, Alex. It's one commercial. One commercial at a time.
Bathtubs.
Cacao. Cacao. I mean, this is, I guess I would take over. It's not really a franchise guess, but yet really. But the first answer was Adventure Time. I would want to take over. I would want to take over the Adventure Time world and play in that sandbox.
Ooh, that's a good one. God, take control of a big franchise. I mean, first of all, lots of responsibility there.
Don't think about the responsibility, Alex. Think about the fun. The shareholders are
so
not
I have
calling.
kids. I don't have time for this. I got to learn so many different skills.
James Cameron makes an announcement that Alex Zalbin tanked the next 5 Avatar movies because he wasn't responsible enough.
That would be so hard. Can you imagine that?
Because the Avatar's bad?
Well, no, because there's such a richly fleshed out world from the movie and the theme park rides and the comic books, I think.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
It's crazy to have a theme park ride based on one movie, though, right?
It's insane.
When does that happen?
I don't know.
I guess
Somebody
the fried green tomatoes ride at Universal Studios was really fun.
Yeah, it's immersive.
You just get your foot caught on the railroad tracks, and then you get
I don't think I could do a better job than they did, but She-Ra was so good. I'd love to see more in that world, not related to the main characters. I think there's more story.
You said She-Ra?
She-Ra, sure.
Nice.
Why not?
Great.
Also, Star Wars. I feel like there would be no problems with taking over Star Wars.
I mean, I will say in that sort of larger franchise conversation, the way that, we don't know if this is actually happening, but the idea that Rian Johnson is developing his own trilogy in the Star Wars universe that is like just all new, like that is super interesting to be able to use all the stuff we loved when we were a kid, the world of it, but not have to be beholden to all the like frustrated fans that would be mad anytime you touched on Skywalker stuff. Like that would be cool.
Yeah, and I think to your point, they are heading in that direction. I know this is a very side conversation, but I read Charles Soule's Star Wars: The High Republic, Light of the Jedi, I think is the name of the novel, and that's set hundreds of years before the Skywalker stuff. It doesn't, with one exception, which is Yoda, who kind of shows up very briefly. There's none of the other characters. There's nobody who's like, my real name is Bango Fett, or whatever, or anything like that. Like, it's totally unrelated. I'm just playing the concepts, and it honestly took me like a little while to get into it just because it didn't have any of those touch points. But it's good and fun. I'm sold enough that I'm going to check out the second book. So, good stuff. Let's go over to Kevin's question here. What is your favorite consequence of Marvel and DC breaking with the comics codes in the 70s?
My favorite consequence?
Consequence, yes.
Guns and sex.
Yeah, I love all the fucking.
I think, creative freedom, I think, is the ultimate. The way that the comics code really, like all censors for TV, like it's stupid after a while. Like I understand the intention of like protecting children from things that they're not mature enough to understand, but it's so quickly, kids just move faster than anyone older thinks. So it's like, if you explain to them what's happening, then they can learn from the stories and actually learn about these things, violence, sex, whatever they're trying to shelter them from. So they're prepared when they encounter it in their own lives. So I think opening that up and letting comics be a real storytelling vessel, a place where people could learn about the world. Like, I feel like my storytelling ability is a direct result of having read comics for my entire life. So it's important. And that unshackled the creatives.
And the comics code was on there for a really long time until relatively recently. I remember thinking, even as a kid, like, what is this doing? What are you preventing at this point?
Yeah.
Which was nothing. But yeah, listen, like you were sort of touching on, I think limits are good, but censorship is bad, which obviously is a very blunt statement to make, but I think there is a difference there. And having self-imposed limits, as long as you have people who actually do have that sense of it, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Saying, listen, no, we don't want Captain America to gut somebody and then turn them inside out. That's too much. and understanding those things, I think that can potentially lead to good stories. So,
But if I could take the other side for a brief moment, Bruce Timm has this great story about working on the Batman animated series, where he was talking about a scene where I think it's Batgirl or someone is falls off, is climbing a grappling hook, a rope, and they fall and crash into the top of a car, and she's really injured. And he's like, we drew it in the mock-up, and they were like, oh, you can't show that. So instead, they're like, okay. So we just showed her on the rope, and then her falling, and then the rope dangling in the wind. And he was like, it was way scarier to show an empty rope dangling in the wind and hearing the crashing noise. But that got through the censorship or the code when showing it, which would have been at least understandable and less leaving kids or anyone watching with this image where you're like, your mind is doing it.
Yeah.
So I do think that lets you get, as a kid, I would have been scared of that probably, but now I'm like, that's so much more interesting to have that limitation and be able to show a more interesting version of it.
Absolutely. Here's one from Pablo. What do you think about the Shang-Chi trailer? Do you think it'll be the next Black Panther? That's certainly how they've been talking about it in terms of fleshing out a world with the majority Asian cast versus a majority Black cast with Black Panther. They feel very different to me, which is good.
Yeah, I don't know if it feels like a totally different just type of movie. Like so much of Black Panther was about Wakanda as a place, and this feels a little more focused on the character's journey. So I guess we'll see. I just think it looks great, and it feels like a very different corner of the Marvel universe and just a different type of movie than they've made, but still having the Marvel sort of like a fun little joke here that it shouldn't be shot in the same Marvel style. Like it was great.
And it feels like you were saying, it doesn't, there's not a lot of preconceived notions for Shang-Chi necessarily, right? I think people maybe know his story, but he certainly started as far as I know, Stan Lee being like, we need a Bruce Lee, but in our comic books, go. And that was pretty much it. And it was kind of picked up later. And I think people have written some good stories, but it's not for most readers, probably for some readers, but not for most readers on the same level of iconic stories with Spider-Man or Captain America or Thor, or even like Iron Man, who came in with that first movie, and Marvel was like, people don't know who Iron Man is, we need to make them aware. But as comic book readers, at least we had a vague idea of one or two stories that Iron Man was involved in. Shang-Chi isn't the same thing. He has a bad dad, that he was trained as an assassin, and that's pretty much it. And I love that they're running with that. They got engaging actors, and the action looks cool. It looks super fun.
It's also interesting the 10 rings of it all, and the Mandarin, right? That's what we're going to get here, especially given the way the Mandarin was used in the Iron Man trilogy. It's like really interesting that they're bringing him back and maybe making it a real thing.
Yeah, it's such a funny, like it's a typical comic book thing. Like they've had almost double backups and retcons. I know some people disagree with this. I love the Trevor Slattery thing in Iron Man 3. I thought it was great. It was
me too. Funny. I thought it was great. I couldn't believe they did it. I'm like, what's such a funny thing to do?
But then having Guy Pearce say, you know what, I am the real Mandarin, was kind of a misstep, and it felt like you've got this classic Marvel villain that should play into the Iron Man mythos somewhere, and you just didn't get that. You didn't get that release of getting to finally see him in some form. And apparently the way that they're doing this is he's an original character. He's not exactly based on the comic books. He was called the Mandarin at some point. He's certainly the real leader of the Ten Rings organization, because, not to get too in the weeds here, if you watch the Marvel one-shot where Trevor Slattery is in prison, at the end of it, there is an agent of the real Mandarin who comes to be like, I'm going to take you to meet the real guy. Presumably that's him. Presumably we're going to see, like, there's that shot of the frozen water in the air. So presumably we're going to see some sort of 10 rings of power type situation that is going to act like the Mandarin, even if they don't exactly call him the Mandarin. That's good. I think, like you're saying, it's a lot of back and forth, but I'm glad we're finally getting this thing that we were promised over a decade ago.
The Mandarin was one of the first villains I read in comics because I started reading Iron Man back during Armor Wars, I think, and the Mandarin was terrifying and seemed like Infinity Gauntlet level powerful. So I was like, the fact that the Mandarin isn't a bigger force in the comics universe as well as MCU, I think, feels weird to me. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be cool. We'll watch that movie. This is from Eduardo. Following up on a discussion of Amazon Studios being friendly to comic adaptations, is there a particular streaming service that you think is really killing it so far in 2021? Is Alex still an HBO Max naysayer?
Yeah, Alex, you're going to have to eat some crow here because HBO Max, I'm not coming up here saying HBO Max is like my thing, but HBO Max has come on strong. And you gotta suck it up. And I want a personal apology.
My entire personality is defined by a streaming service I have no business stake in whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, they have a really good back catalog. I think even when I was slamming HBO Max, the thing that was frustrating about it to me was they had an okay product. They have a really good back catalog and some good things on there that you could watch. It's certainly, you already have HBO, so it's not going to be too much money out of your pocket, most likely. But the way that they rolled it out and they messages and everything was a mess, like an absolute mess. And it's still frustrating to me that they've had to dig themselves out of this hole that they set themselves up in right at the beginning this entire time. Because, like, weirdly, and perhaps surprisingly, particularly for comic book fans, Snyder Cut was not the big hit they wanted it to be, but Godzilla vs. Kong was huge. Yeah. Enormous. And I think they're really well set up for Mortal Kombat is coming out this week. I think that's probably going to be pretty big as well. And then they're going to have the Suicide Squad down the road that I also think will probably be big and other things. So I think they're going to truck along there and they're going to build. They're not building as fast as they could. And I think part of the reason is they're lacking in terms of like what they are as a service still. Like the movies are big and I think they should almost follow, and they probably will because they have all these DC series in development and other things, but they need to follow that model. What they're doing right now is they're rolling out these really good HBO series where it's like, if you watched Godzilla vs. Kong, watch Made for Love. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. Like, there's not a lot of Venn diagram crossover there, and that's the problem with HBO Max right now.
Yeah, I hear that. I will say I've been liking HBO Max because of the variety and the quality level. It's easier to navigate. It's easier for me anyway to navigate and find the good stuff. It's maybe featured better. Netflix, I feel like, is a little bit of a mess finding what I want or willing to like, oh, let me watch this thing and see what it's like. And Netflix is just so big, they're not going to change much. And HBO Max feels like they're trying hard and maybe getting a couple more hits out there.
Well, HBO Max also, we're getting very in the weeds about streaming services, but hey, that's fine. I love talking about this. The back catalog is better than Netflix. Like, if you go beyond the Netflix originals, which are already a mixed bag, and maybe like the top tier things that they're rolling out, there's a lot of shit on there, like nonstop. When I go to watch something, if on the off chance that I don't have screeners or there's stuff we need to watch for the show or something like that, if I'm browsing through Netflix, everything is garbage on there for the most part. HBO Max at least has stuff where it's like, oh, this is an interesting thing. This is something that maybe they have like, they hide it weirdly under extras, but they have a lot of really good director's cuts of movies there as well, which is cool. Somebody brought up Peacock. Peacock is one that I also don't know what the identity is, but they have like a fun mix of movies on there. I know a lot of people who really like the channels because they'll have things themed around. If you like Saved by the Bell, there's a whole Saved by the Bell channel. There's a whole Office channel. And this sounds like a slam, but I really think it's a compliment. That's really good background noise. Like if you're working and you just like having The Office on, great. It's like running a YouTube channel. That's cool. So I don't know. I don't know if this answered the question. Am I being terrible about everything?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there... I mean, I would say Disney Plus is probably winning the year, though, frankly.
Because of the Marvel shows?
Yeah.
Well, because they're not doing much else.
Right.
So that's what I think is interesting. Disney Plus has such the rep, but I don't go there to watch much. I just watch the Marvel shows there. And so and my kids watch a ton of Disney stuff, but
yeah,
I'm not like, what's up on Disney Plus I can watch, and poking around through some of those, like I've lost in a National Geographic hole or whatever.
Well, I think the Jay Citizen brings up the Mighty Ducks show, which I think is actually really charming. A lot of people really like High School Musical, the musical, the series. But I agree with you. It's mostly for kids and for families when you're looking for a family movie night thing. But the fact that they can keep it coasting with one episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier a week is bonkers.
Yeah, it's strong. I feel like now is a time when everyone's going to start to pick and choose the streaming services they actually want to keep. Summer's hitting. People are going out, less concerned with coronavirus. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a big shift in numbers.
Yeah. This is from Scott Carpenter on YouTube. And Scott, thank you so much for the tip. Since Pete isn't here, how do you feel about the new X-Men comics? I like them, but struggling to keep up with all of them, and 4 more coming out soon.
Well, I just read X-Men 19. I hadn't read it until this week, and I thought it was just great, really good. And the Way of X coming out is I'm very excited about that. That feels like sort of a real defining book going forward, and really exploring the world of Krakoa in a way that hasn't been done. I feel like we've glanced the surface of a lot of things, and now it's time to drill down. And that to me is the most exciting part, because everything is interesting. Even if you're like, that's weird, at least it's interesting, and let's learn about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm also having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with everything, honestly, just because there are so many of them, but I think they're really fascinating. I like checking in with them. It was honestly really helpful when they had the event, because that felt like a way of forcing myself to read every one.
Because there were numbers.
There were numbers.
Oh, the numbers lined up.
Yes, exactly. But at the same time, yeah, I think they're really well done. They're good. And I think like what we're seeing coming up is a bunch of them that are basically rebooting. Like they're figuring out how to realign the line again at the same time. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, just YouTube cut out, so I'm keeping an eye on that. For those of the watching on YouTube, if you do manage to see this, we will upload the episode later. This just happens sometimes on YouTube. It's a bummer.
YouTube. Unreliable.
Yeah, sorry, the tube. Okay, this is from Stray Bullet. In light of Falcon versus the Winter Soldier changing the plot motivation of the villains, is there a way to use the pandemic as a plot device without disrespecting the experience of people who lost quite a bit in the last year? That's an interesting question. Just to give a bit of background on this, this is somewhat rumory, though I've heard this from a couple of different places.
Yeah, it feels real.
It feels real. The original plot of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which we talked about on our Marvel Vision podcast, was that the Flag Smashers were going to release a virus which would kill off half the world's population and bring it down to blip levels. And that was their whole plan. That's why Mama Donya died. She died of a virus. That's why they were stealing vaccines, all these other plot points. And then they went back in after the pause for shooting for COVID and reshot a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of new dialogue, and changed it so that there was no virus. So to that point, what do you think, Justin? Is there a way of doing that responsibly?
Not quite yet, I don't think. I feel like it's going to we need to be a little bit further past it, so that people aren't, because there's still so many ramifications happening, and not everyone's vaccinated. Like, we're in this world where it's still happening, and I wouldn't want to be behind a show that is commenting on that or influencing people's actions based on just a story that we're trying to tell. So I do think it's a little too timely, but I do think we'll get back to it soon.
The way that they talked about it, Kevin Feige talked about a little bit that you would start to feel the blip as a metaphor for coronavirus. I don't know that I've gotten that from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I think that's a way of doing it. That's what comics have done since time immemorial, is used superheroes as a metaphor for things outside of our window. So we'll see if that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it touches on some feelings, I think, of the pandemic, but to draw a one-to-one, I think, is what is the tricky about it.
You got to wait.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You also, just from artistic perspective, you need the distance. It's like all the 9/11 movies that came out right after 9/11. I lived through it. I didn't need to process that through Mark Wahlberg doing whatever, or whatever, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, but you process so much of the world through what Mark Wahlberg's doing, so it makes sense.
Right. Every time I feel something, I have a Wahlburger, and then I understand.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. If you could only read DC or this is from Nick Grayson. If you could only read DC or Marvel or everything else for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
DC, the three categories are DC, Marvel, or everything else.
I think DC or Marvel.
Oh, interesting. Gotta go Marvel. It's sad to give up Batman, but gotta go Marvel.
Yeah, it's tough. I think we were talking about it on one of the shows you weren't here for, and I said that I was leaning a little heavier DC right now, just because I really like what they're doing from a story and art perspective. But I don't know. When the chips are down, I think I would choose Marvel too.
Wow. You're flirting. You're flirting with DC.
I'm flirting with DC.
But you're always going to come back to Mama Marvel.
And last question here. There's a great tee up. This is from Josh. Who's doing trivia tonight? Well, that kicks it into our next section, which is trivia. And we're going to turn it over to the real star of trivia, Justin Tyler.
Yeah, it's my time to shine. Finally, the Tiger's going to handle the harder questions. The way trivia works is traditionally I ask three questions. There are multiple choice answers, and you can win a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics virtual. As always, all you need to do to be involved in this trivia experience is raise your hand. First hand up will get to do trivia.
And walk away with $25 to Midtown Comics.
That's
Some of the folks have come over for. Ooh, here we go. People just say hands up, me, hello.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can say, and if there's some people coming over here from the tube, then please, this is your chance to come do it live.
Yeah,
we're doing it live.
Ooh, hand up! Here we go. We got Jonathan McCool. Welcome,
Jonathan McCool coming in for some trivia.
Exciting. Now, are you doing this on topical comic book news?
That's a great question, and I am not. Trivia today is on non-topical comic news.
Oh,
that's right.
Technically not news, but
yeah, it's not topical, non-news. It might not even be comic book related. Let me be honest.
Hey, hello.
This
How are
is
you?
so fancy. Wow.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over from the tube. We appreciate it. I'm going to let Justin take it away.
Yes, it's great to be talking to you. Are you in some sort of heaven?
I wish. No, I'm in a room full of computers.
No. That's my idea of heaven. Thanks for jumping in, Jonathan. Trivia, I'm going to read the question and read three possible answers. If you answer all of the questions correctly, gift card yours.
All right.
I'm trying to remember the lines that Pete says. Today's trivia is on non-topical comic non-news with a special shout-out to Pete LePage. Question number 1. What would you consider to be the first comic book? Is it A, Neanderthal cave drawings, B, erotic drawings on Mesopotamian clay pots, or C, Pete LePage?
A.
A is correct. But I should say Alex does collect erotic clay pots as part of his pervert comic collection.
Yes, it's absolutely true. They're right over there, though. They're off camera. So
I can't believe you got to get those things on camera. Great job, Jonathan. And again, like Pete gives hints. I don't do that. That's not my thing. It's much harder trivia. And also, these are all opinion-based, like a lot of Pete's questions. So there's no actual right or wrong answer. Question number 2. When you were a kid and had read all the other comic strips in the newspaper, even Gasoline Alley, would you read Prince Valiant? A, yes, that shit was fire and taught me about what it means to be a hero with a very bad haircut. B, no way. I got hung up on Family Circus. Jeffy did just whatever the fuck he wanted and got away with it, so I would just go do the jumble. Or is it C, Pete LePage?
Well, first it was always Calvin and Hobbes.
Of course. I mean, I'm talking after you got through all the good comics.
And then Garfield.
Got to do Marmaduke. Zitz.
But definitely got to be B.
That is correct. Prince Valiant can go fuck himself. I think that's a thing, a policy we stand by here. Question number 3. This one's very hard. It's 420. How high is Pete LePage right now? Is it A, pretty high? Is it B, high enough that he thinks he's here right now? Or is it C, he's Frankencastle is actually pretty awesome high? Or is it D, Pete LePage?
Oh, it's a visual answer, as high as possible. Can we take that, Justin?
That is correct. He is. Yeah. Frankencastle was pretty awesome high, and I can't wait till he gets back to tell us all about it.
Awesome. Jonathan, congratulations. You've won $25 from Midtown Comics. Shoot us an email at comicbookclublive@gmail.com. We will get that off to you. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks for jumping over from the tube. Sorry it all went down.
Hey, thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome.
Are you in a computer lab? What are you working, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm actually at the police dispatch station. So if you guys got any problems, you might get me on the phone. Well,
yes, right.
Great.
Very cool. Awesome. You have a great night, Jonathan.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Bye. Later, man. Thanks for
so awesome. Cool. Awesome.
And for those of you, there's a secret quiz in the answers.
Okay.
If you were paying attention.
Was it a movie that Pete was in?
It is. Obviously, the 3 answers are Pete LePage, Pete LePage, Pete LePage. Sure. Kevin, do you have a guess? Kevin, you always seem to know the answer. Where are you on this one? The movie that Pete LePage is in is his great guess. Kevin says, how high? Is Pete LePage's one-man show, which you can see the trailer of over on his YouTube page. Go check, which is youtube.com/Pete LePage. Check that out, and hopefully, I think he has it taped. I'm going to get him to release it because it's actually a very good show. Brought me to tears.
Amazing. As we all know, tomorrow is New Comic Book Day, unless you're DC Comics, in which case, hey, they're out today. We release them whenever. Also, Comixology, I think, is out today, too. But, Justin, what are you looking forward to?
What to look forward to? Lots of stuff out there this week.
Tell you what, I'll throw it out. I'm looking forward to The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, #1 from Boom Studios. They're written by Ram V, art by Felipe Andrade. Love the creative team. Very interested to see what it's about. Maybe it's a really good book that I like. I don't know. But
yeah, I guess we'll never know. I'm going to go with Way of X #1 that I was just talking about. Again, a book that obviously it's not out yet, so I haven't really read it, but I will say it really delves in. I assume it really delves into the underpinnings of Krakoa and Krakoa, and Nightcrawler as a main character that I thought was just so good and explored the world. It explores the world, I think, in a great way.
Very cool stuff. Coincidentally, you can get those reviews and many more on our Stack podcast that comes out Wednesdays at 9 a.m., both in the Comic Book Club feed and its own dedicated Stack feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. A couple of things we want to shout out before we go. First of all, Curt Pires. Check out Youth, which is on Comixology now, as well as the first volume from Dark Horse Comics. Eliot Rahal and Emily Pearson, thank you. Check out The Vein from Oni Press. Volume 1 is out now. Next week, we have 2 more great guests for you. Connor McCreary from The Last Witch a book
Yes.
that we're enjoying quite a bit. He's
Love
gonna
that
be here.
book.
Also, Juan Espinoza from Tales of a System Admin. We had him on our live show a while back, and he is back with his book, so that should be fun. Bunch of other podcasts that we have rolling out. We have Marvel Vision. Our Marvel podcast is going to be finishing up Falcon and the Winter Soldier this week. Very exciting. Podvincible, our Invincible podcast, is still trucking along, heading towards the end of that first season very soon.
Yeah.
Also, Riverdale After Dark, our Riverdale podcast, will be back for some special episodes soon. So keep your eyes on that feed. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support all the shows that we do. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen. At Comic Book Live on Twitter. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and more. Until next time, that's it for Comic Book Club FB420, one and all.
Good night, guys. If anybody sees Pete wandering the streets, get him inside.